Hey, Joe Martin here. You've seen our commercials over the years, and you may be wondering, what's in it for me? Well, ITI Technical College has been selected by Forbes magazine as a top 32-year college. But even more than that, the reason we do this is you. Our tagline is, for a better life, and we mean that, for you to be able to have the life you've always dreamed about, to do the things for your family you've always dreamed about. And it can begin here, where we are dedicated to your success, because here at ITI,
This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag, and I'm Lee Feinswag. We're in our 24th year, if you count Sports Monday and Sports 225, and the only way that could happen is, well, it's my show.
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. And now, me.
There you go, Well, in the old days, we used to call this Selection Monday, but it's not Monday anymore. It's Sports 225. First airing is on Friday on CST, so the tournament already will be, in full progress. But anyway, Brock Kantrow's here. Now, Brock is a former college basketball coach, but now he's a restaurateur. But I wanted to tell you a story. I think I've told you this story, but it's got nothing to do with hoops. It's better.
It's good.
So the other day I was listening to Cheap Trick, and I said,
One of my favorites.
And I said, the guy I was with, I said, I had dinner and closed down at the original Bistro Byron's with those guys at 4 in the morning. And he's like, what? Yeah, and I said, and Kansas was there and a few other guys, and this is actually a true story. So the original Bistro Byron's was in a place called Village Square, may it rest in peace, which was on College Drive in Baton Rouge, right where basically the Walmart complex is now.
Where Coffee Call is, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, kind of like, it was in that same general area where it's Coffee Call and, on that side of the shopping center. So I don't remember how it happened, but and Steve Lundquist, the Olympic swimmer, was there. Well, the opening ceremonies of the 1985 National Sports Festival, which was in Tiger Stadium, and I was covering that event, and that was a big deal for us at the Advocate, and a big deal for Baton Rouge. There's still a lot of residual things, not the least of which like the natatorium, the velodrome, a lot of other sports that picked up because of it. Somehow I ended up at Bistro Byron's at like 1 in the morning with Cheap Trick, Kansas, Lundquist, a few other guys, and your parents, who of course were considerably younger at the time.
I was a mere baby, yes.
You were, yes. And the reason I'm telling you that is because Brock and his family have the restaurants Bistro Byron's, of which now they've grown, reincarnated, and then you've got...
and I'm not a baby anymore, I'm an old man.
You are. But during all that time, and then he eventually became a basketball coach. But has anyone ever brought that up in the family history?
No, that's the first I've ever heard of that, and that's surprising because I know most of the stories from the older days. But it's I love Cheap Trick and I love Kansas, so I'm sad I missed it.
Well, in this case, Mommy's all right, Daddy's all right.
That's right.
Because they opened up the kitchen for us, and I remember your mom helping us out, and cooking and stuff.
That's awesome.
Now I don't know if they remember this or want to lay claim to it.
I'm sure they'll see the show and I'll hear 400 stories about it.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile, back to this basketball show, semi-related to music.
Yep.
You ever go see much music? No.
I do. I'm a music. I love music. I go to New Orleans a bunch, and Baton Rouge is starting to get into the music scene a little bit more. Dyson House is doing some stuff. The listening rooms are kind of in vogue now, so it's a little bit easier to see some music. But music is my therapy.
Well, one of the things he does at one of his restaurants is has people come in and sing.
Yeah, Thursday nights.
First opportunity at the. All right, I'm going to say the name of the restaurant wrong.
Flambe Cafe.
Flambe
Cafe.
I was going to say
even rhyme. I did it for you, so you can say it.
Yeah. So, anyway, none of that is why Brock is here. Brock's here because it's NCAA tournament week, and he's a former college basketball coach. He was at Tulane, then he went to Miami with Perry Clark, the head coach, and then was silly enough to go break out on his own, which is basically what ruined his career at Loyola up in Maryland.
St. Mary's College of Maryland.
St. Mary's College of Maryland. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So what year did you guys leave Tulane to go to Miami?
About 2001, maybe, I think, right? It was the year after we made the NCAA tournament, and we lost to Maryland in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And it was the year after Miami went to the Sweet 16, and Leonard Hamilton left to go coach the Wizards.
And Leonard Hamilton, of course, now he's at Florida
Florida State. Been there for 20 years. Yep.
Right, and we have Florida. Do we both have Florida State going?
It was a toss-up, and I went with Zion versus Florida State.
Okay, yeah, Zion, not Duke.
Not Duke.
Zion. So, in the time that you left Tulane, how many college basketball coaches has Tulane had with the firing this past week of Mike Dunleavy?
There's, I think, 5, and even we talked about this earlier. Even more interesting than that is when we left Tulane, I can remember that the alumni were all upset because we lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and Perry had lost his edge. Blah 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 blah. Well, since we've been gone, they have not made the NIT tournaments.
So they've simply not been to postseason play
since we
in
left.
Almost 20 years now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So careful what you wish for.
And I'm personally of the belief that Tulane was on the right track around then when they were talking about going to Division III. And now they've not only tried to escalate what they're doing in Division I, they've built a football stadium right in the middle of campus.
But it's doable there, Lee. I mean, we proved that. I mean, it is, and especially. And when we were there, the league was ridiculous. I mean, it was Louisville. I mean, Memphis. I mean, the league was.
Was it still Metro?
It was a Metro, and then it turned into Conference USA, and it was the first 3 years of Conference USA, and it was incredible. We had, I think, 3 and 4 teams to tournament each year.
And now they're in the American Athletic Conference, which pawns itself off as the Power Six.
Right.
Yes, and.
It's a winnable conference. I mean, that league takes athletes, and that's what Tulane hadn't had in a long time. It's just athletes.
Central Florida is the shining star of that league right now in both football, basketball, and not basketball per se, but good basketball, and volleyball, very good.
Yep.
But Houston is in that league. And what Houston did this year should give hope to everybody, shouldn't it?
I mean, Kelvin did. I mean, that's what I mean. The years we were there, we had 5 kids from Chicago. They weren't great basketball players. They were tough kids. They were long, athletic. Some of them could shoot. Most of them couldn't. But in that league, that's what you need. You need athletes to be able to compete.
Yeah. Well, somehow we got through this first segment and we talked about the important things, music and Tulane basketball, which hasn't been important since these guys left in 2000.
Maybe one day we'll bring it back. We'll see.
Yeah. When we get back, we'll talk LSU basketball. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the guy who enforces rules at Breck Parks. Check out my amazing presentation. Did you know? Motorized vehicles are not allowed in Breck Parks. Sales and solicitation are prohibited without permission from Breck. And my favorite rule, keep Breck Parks clean by placing all trash in trash cans. Come on, you can do this. For more information about these and other Breck rules, please visit breck.org/HDB.
Back on Sports 225, I'm Lee Feinswag hanging out with Brock Kantrow, the restaurateur but former college basketball coach, proudly wearing my 20th year anniversary volleyball Baton Rouge sweatshirt. Established 2000. This is the 20th year. Anyway, that's here and there.
I'm proudly wearing my Bistro Baron's half zip.
Yeah, there you go.
Established 2007.
Somewhere I got maybe one of those shirts where it says "good, really good."
I got
Is
you.
that what it said?
Yes.
Don't
good,
I have
real,
one of those?
Good,
somewhere?
real good. You got it.
Yeah, somewhere. Okay, so you may have heard that LSU basketball is in the news for all sorts of different reasons. Now, by the time this comes out, LSU will have already either beaten Yale and advanced to a second round or has packed up for the season. None of which it will have done with its former coach, Will Wade. Now, we talked about how Tulane has had so many coaches since 2000. How about all the basketball coaches that LSU has had in that time? Of course, John Brady was the coach when you started there, right? And then you had Trent Johnson.
Yep.
And then you had Johnny Jones.
Yep.
And then you had Will Wade. And then you had an interim.
Right.
And now you're going to have a 6th coach coming up in 20 years.
Certainly looks that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not a good scenario. There's just no winners in this whole thing.
All right, I want to ask you a question. I want to get an honest answer. So back in the late 90s and into 2000, how did players get compensated without anybody knowing it back then? What was the, like, for example, before then, I know was the advent of the ATM card, which was an untraceable thing. But now the ATM card is a little too traceable because of the cameras.
Look, all I know is when I was at Tulane, we got in trouble because one of my kids made some long-distance phone calls from his dorm room, which is the dumbest thing you could ever do in your entire life because it's traceable. Now there's so many cell phones and burner phones and things that you can do. It's not even funny. We were living in analog days back in those days.
You're still analog to me.
That's right.
No, but I want people through you to get a little bit of insight on how the seedy part of the inky dark shadows works.
I don't think that. I mean, I think there's a gray area that everybody operates in, which is within the rules, and then when you step out of the gray area, then you're opening yourself up to to problems.
At Tulane, I'm going to venture out to say that you guys didn't necessarily recruit top 50 guys who got paid more than the top 1,000 guys.
Right. Look, like I told you, we were recruiting kids out of Chicago that just were happy to have a place to go to school, and that's because at Tulane it was a different deal. I mean, there's not a whole lot to sell at Tulane. We wouldn't even take guys to the locker room at Tulane because we were embarrassed how bad the locker room was. We would have a campus visit and we would take them out to eat and maybe to the hotel, and then we'd send them off on their way. Because back then Fogelman still had the old windows that you rolled up with chains.
Nice.
The air conditioning worked every other week. The heater never worked. I mean, it was just where I operated was not near where some of these schools are operating these days.
When you went to Miami, did that change? Because they were not ACC at the time yet, were they?
No, they were not. We were in the Big East still. And when I got there, luckily our roster was loaded when I got there. Darius Rice, had just signed as a freshman. John Simons was there as a sophomore. James Jones, who played 14 years in the NBA with LeBron James, was there as a sophomore. Elton Tyler was a senior. I mean, we had a really, really good team coming back. So it was for the 4 years that I was there, we kind of played with the crew that I had. I remember losing to Missouri in the NCAA tournament the day after my daughter was born. And it was when Missouri had been #1 in the country to start the year, and they had a whole bunch of off-the-court issues, and they lost a bunch of games. They got everybody back just in time for the NCAA tournament. Quinn Snyder was coaching them. And we ended up losing by 11. And I looked on the floor, I go, "This is amazing. I've got 4 pros on the team." And I played against a team that had 5 pros on the team. The talent level in the Big East and the ACC is just unbelievable.
Now, the Big East, though, was filthy then.
The Big East was awesome. I mean, that was St. John.
No, I'm talking filthy like everybody was cheating their asses off.
I guess we weren't. I mean, I guess that's the problem. That's why we couldn't win.
I wasn't using the basketball term filthy.
Yeah,
like,
it was filthy good. Filthy. And I will tell you, I can remember sitting on the bench in Madison Square Garden for my first Big East tournament, and I called my 3rd grade basketball coach, Jimmy Percy. And I said, "You're not going to believe where I am right now." He goes, "Where are you?" I go, "I'm sitting on the bench in Madison Square Garden." He goes, "How does it feel?" I go, "Freaking awesome."
I love it. All right, I'm still trying to get you. I'm getting nowhere with this guy. It's like interviewing a politician.
That's pretty good, right?
Give me a good example of a kid asking you for something. You don't have to name the kid.
I mean, I can honestly say I never had a kid ask me for something. I mean, it was to the point where my first year at Miami, the football team had been in so much trouble that we couldn't veer any which way. I mean, I couldn't take a kid with an umbrella to class. We couldn't, if it was pouring down rain and I want to take a kid from my practice facility to his classroom, I couldn't drive him. That was a violation. I could not drive him from one place to the other. I mean, we were operating under a whole different type of scrutiny because once the NCAA comes, they're there and everybody is on their P's and Q's.
When you went to a D3, that must have been a whole different mindset.
I laugh because, in Division III, you have to be a really, really good recruiter in Division III because you're saying, "I want you to come play for me," and you only have to pay $30,000 a year. You're not giving them anything. You're asking them to take out loans, grants, any way you can get them there. And we had, we signed a couple of really, really good kids in my first and second year. I had 3 Division I players that left Division I to come play Division III, and they did. They took out loans. So it's a whole different mindset. They actually want to play for you. I mean, they have something invested in it. So it's just a refreshing way to coach when you're at that level.
Okay, well, you did a very nice job there, Coach Saban. Anyway, he's Brock Kantrow, the restaurateur and former college basketball coach who gave me nothing on the dark, seedy side of college basketball.
Once we turn the cameras off, I'll think about it.
I know, that's exactly what's going to happen. When we get back, we got to talk about the NCAA bracket. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the rules guy for Breck Parks. Sometimes the rules slip past us, so I put together this amazing presentation. Did you know? Golf practice is only allowed at designated golf facilities. Firearms, explosives, and weapons are not allowed on Breck property. Metal detecting is allowed in some parks, but go to Breck's website to learn more about this and other park rules. For more information, visit breck.org/HDB.
Old school, new school.
That's right. Old school, new school. I still have to print mine out, and I printed out the one with the TV times to get you my Final Four. And the only reason I really do it is I stopped, when I was the LSU basketball beat writer, and I would do brackets. So I was probably more in tune with the college scene than most everybody. I mean, all I did was watch college hoops, write about it, talk about it, follow it, and I was terrible at brackets, just absolutely horrible. And it ruined it for me because it would make me mad. I don't want to get mad watching the NCAA tournament. I just want to watch it and enjoy it. So I really just stopped doing it at least 20 years ago, and I enjoy it way more. Well, every Tuesday at 4:15, I do the radio gig with Matt Moscona. And before we talk about beer, so for 10 minutes of sports, this year I knew it would be, all right, what's your Final Four? So this running joke, every year I pick Purdue to win it. And I like Purdue's basketball team, and I love Matt Painter, their coach. I think he's one of, if not the best young, well, he's not so young anymore.
Right, I know, right?
But just a great coach. Big Ten's just loaded with great coaches. So my Final Four, well, I'll get to that in a little bit, but I pick Purdue every year. So 2 years ago, I think they got knocked off in the first round. And last year, they made it to the round of 16 and lost. And you have a running Purdue joke too, right?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've been picking Purdue since my buddy Greg Gary's been there. I think it's his 8th year there, and I've been picking them every year because I'm loyal like that. And they're knocking on the door. I have two that I pick every year. And I used to pick Syracuse every year because I used to think the zone would mess people up in the tournament, but evidently I'm way off on that. I also always pick anywhere that John Beilein's coaching. I think he's just such a good tournament coach. And he's so good at disguising defenses and playing multiple defenses. And if he runs 1,000 sets, it's impossible to scout. I remember getting the scouts for him when I was coaching. He was at West Virginia when I was at Miami. And I'd get the scout. I mean, my book was like 25 pages of set plays, and nobody's going to remember those. You can't, it's impossible for my guys to remember all that.
So you have Beeline coming out of that lower left bracket with Michigan?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's not a bad pick. Now, I got Florida State. Now, Michigan's a 2 seed, and neither one of us thinks that Gonzaga's getting out.
No, I talked with Jimmy Ott and Charles on their show the other day. I mean, they are 4-3 in quadrant 1 wins. I mean, that's.
Oh, so you're a much sought after media darling this week?
You know, right?
Ooh.
I got good food.
They didn't ask you. What, you had them at your own restaurant?
Yeah, I did.
They didn't ask you good questions like this. No. So see, I have Florida State coming out of that part.
And I like Florida State. I used to always pick them too because they're so athletic. And if it wasn't for them being in the same bracket with Michigan, I'd have picked them as well.
I mean, I didn't even go close to chalk. So up at the top, where you have Duke and Zion Williamson, and he is really good, isn't he? God, he's fabulous. Yeah. He's like a modern day version of LeBron James.
I think he's better. I mean, I just love his game.
At the same level, at the same age, no doubt. Yeah.
He's just he does so many things. He affects a game. The only person I can remember affecting the game like that I actually coached against was Kenyon Martin when he was at Cincinnati. He would literally win games by himself. It didn't matter what they didn't run any plays for him. He'd just go get the ball off the rim and dunk it on you or just bring it down himself and score.
His name came up this year during the volleyball season, believe it or not, because BYU, which ended up getting a #1 seed and made it to the NCAA Final Four in volleyball, had one of its very best players get hurt 2 weeks out. And the head of the volleyball committee for the NCAA, when I interviewed her, I asked her how that was going to affect BYU, and she said, "You mean the Kenyon Martin rule?" And I was like, "Wow, that was surprising," because Kenyon Martin was the star player for Cincinnati, broke his leg, if memory serves. And the question was then, should that or would that affect Cincinnati? And it did, which was very unfair, I thought, to their body of work.
It was, but he beat us by himself 2 years in a row. I hated him.
So you got Duke coming out of the top, and I've got Michigan State.
Yep.
And I think that you and I both, and in retrospect, who knows, we could get there. Well, some of these games we're talking about could be Friday starts, so we may not. We may actually be coming out before then.
Or we could change. We could change our.
That's true, and just go in and edit. Well, it's the fine print's a little too tight for me to be able to see what day it is. But On the other side, where we both have Purdue, Virginia, of course, the 1 seed again.
I've never. I mean, I don't. They say they defend, but I mean, one team gets hot and you're done. One player gets hot and you're done. They just don't. And I know their offense is better this year, and they kind of revamped this offense, but there's so many teams that I'm not sure defense always wins in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. And then I got Carolina, which is the only
Carolina.
1 seed coming out. And I think being away from Duke is a good thing for them.
It's awesome. And I think everybody is hoping for a Duke North Carolina final. That would be, that would just be ridiculous. I kind of like North Carolina for a lot of reasons. They're a really good basketball team. I am a Roy Williams fan. I had a player that played high school for me, played for him at Kansas, Billy Thomas. And Roy has always been a very easy guy to get along with. He's not pretentious. He still pick up the phone if I call him. He still picks up the phone if Billy calls me, needs help. He's a good guy, and I think not underrated coach, but I think this year he's been in the shadows of Krzyzewski and Zion.
Do you have who winning it all? Do you have Duke?
I've got Zion winning it all.
Yeah, Zion. I got Purdue because
I mean, the
Purdue
kid
every
comes
year.
back from being out for 2.5 weeks, and goes 13 for 13 from the floor.
Right.
I mean, that's and then the next game he misses 4. I think he shot in those 2 games, and he was 78% from the field. That's unfair. I mean, and everybody knows the ball is going to him, and they still can't stop him.
Well, what's really unfair is trying to pick basketball knowing that your show is going to come out after some of the games, how bad we're going to look. All right, I'll leave you with.
Did you write yours in pencil or pen?
I do pen.
Okay, good.
Yale, LSU? Since that already
LSU's
happened
got
now.
too many athletes. I mean, I just think they got way too
Everybody's
many
thinking
athletes.
that's a trendy pick.
Yeah,
Yale,
it's
but
not.
yeah.
I mean,
there will be 15s over 2s and 14s over 3s, and
Belmont, everybody's on the Belmont train. I watched them last night. They look pretty darn good. UC Irvine is a popular low seed pick who has the mid majors these days aren't that far off from some of the majors. I mean, it's not the discrepancy is not like what it used to be.
No doubt, all because of the things you wouldn't talk about before. He's Brock Kantrow. I'm Lee Feinswag. We have 1 segment left on Sports 225, and we'll be right back.
Parks close at dark.
You want another?
I think they'll pass. Amplified music and sound is prohibited without permission from Breck. No alcoholic beverages on Breck property. Smoking of tobacco products is not allowed. Use of fire is prohibited except in grills. Gotta remember, Breck wants you to have fun, but in the right way. For more info, go to breck.org/HDB.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, go to sports225.com for all the show listings of when we air on CST and on Your View. Thanks to John Williams from Think JCW for directing. And thanks to Brock Kantrow from Flambe Cafe.
Bistro Barons.
And all that for being here, the former college basketball coach. It's going to be a very difficult hire for LSU in basketball because there's going to be a tarnish no matter how they do in this tournament. Guys who may not leave will probably now leave, you would think. There could be some transfers. There could be sanctions. We don't know. Those are a lot of variables.
There's so many unknowns right now that it's unbelievable. And I don't think we'll know any of the knowns until the season comes to an official close. I think everybody's just waiting to ride the tournament out, which they should. I mean, I think let these players go play without the having to worry about anything else right now. But I mean, there's so many unknowns. It's impossible to figure out where you even go. I mean, it could get really ugly, or it could, who knows? It could turn around and not be near what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in that perspective is going to affect the coaching search, right? I mean, if there's, players stay, and there aren't any sanctions, then you're talking about a different type of hire than if everybody's gone and you got a Division III team with 5 years of probation. I mean, now you're hiring a different type of coach. So I mean, I don't know where you even start.
And like who you start with.
Right. Yeah, who starts? I mean, who starts a search? I mean, there's so much out there about who's leaving, who's coming.
Right. Should the current administration be the ones who hire the coach? There's plenty. And you go on and on.
Yeah.
Makes you glad you're in the restaurant
Oh,
business, and I'm out of the beat writer business.
Like, you know, I usually love this time of the year. I mean, I do. I mean, and people always ask me, "Do you miss coaching? Do you miss coaching?" Yeah, I miss it. I miss it all the time. I really miss it during NCAA tournament time, but I don't miss it quite as much this year with all this going on. I feel a little bit lucky that I have to worry about if I burn a hamburger or not.
Well, speaking of which, I hope you brought some gift certificates for me for my under-the-table inducements.
I got you.
He's Brock Kantrow. Go to Bistro Byron's. Go to Flambe Cafe. Go to sports225.com. There you go. Hey, thanks for coming on. It was fun.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks for watching Sports 225. Good night.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die. Poetry